Charles Bronson, and where is he now and what is happening with him? That's what I'm talking about in this episode. Welcome to my channel, people. Ricky here from Behind the Bars TV. So Charles Bronson, I believe, is still in Woodhill as a Category A prisoner. And his only way of getting off the book and moving on is if he keeps his head down, gets on in the regime, does what has to be done of him to get moved down to Category B. But every year, prisoners like Charles Bronson, who are Category A, it's called in prison slang coming off the book. And coming off the book means getting off Category A, because you've got a Category A book in prison, and they keep reports on you inside of this Category A book. And every year it goes up in front of the Home Office, and it's up to the Home Office, the prison service, the governors put recommendations in, and it's all up to them to let you off the book, get you off Category A. And unfortunately, you'll never get released as a Category A prisoner, not a lifer anywhere. Some prisoners do get released as Category A, but it's only the ones that's serving a fixed term. So I'll give you an example. There was a few lads whilst I was in Franklin prison that got released as Category A prisoner. One of them was Gary Shearer from Manchester, and he was, I think it was around about 10 years he might have served. Can't remember the exact sentence, but he'd served quite a long time, and his sentence was coming to an end, and he was still Category A, and he got released straight from prison, Category A prison, straight into society. I think he might have had to go to a hostel because he was because like I've mentioned, he was Category A and he'd been in for so long. And what happens is when you get released, you're on licence. Under the old rule, it used to be like a month for every year. So if he was doing the 10-year sentence, his licence would be 10 months, which was a lot better and a lot easier for the lads getting released. But now what happens is, if you get a 10-year sentence, 5 years of it is on licence. Or if you serve, I think now it's even changed again where you might be serving 2/3 of that sentence and then the rest of it is on licence. But you could end up spending the whole time in. If you get recalled on licence, then you end up doing the whole term. But getting back to it, there's another lad, Leroy Smith. He'd spent, it was quite a long time he'd done. Can't remember exactly. I've done a podcast with him. It was nigh on 20 years he'd been in prison, and he got released as a Category A prisoner. And like I say, when you get released, most of the time, you've got to go to a hostel. And the reason behind that is because you're coming straight from a high security environment and you've been in prison for that long. They want to see you in a hostel to see how you adjust and get into normal society. But Charles Bronson is still in Woodhill as a Category A prisoner. You'll have to stick with the regime, be respectful, not get into any arguments with the staff. You'll have to do offender behaviour courses. You'll have to do maybe a few other different courses to try and prove that he is changed and get downgraded to Category B. Then, if he gets to Category B, you'll have to spend a substantial amount of time in there to show that he can be in a normal environment on a normal wing. And what I mean by that is at the minute he's in Category a unit in Woodhill. So on the unit, there's only a handful of people on there, maybe 10, maybe a dozen. But I believe there's only about a handful of people on the unit. So he needs to prove that he can be on a wing with another 100 prisoners to prove that he has changed and he can integrate back into society. Because if he can't integrate onto a normal wing, he's never going to integrate into society. And that's the way they're going to look at it. Even though being in society is nothing like being on a wing with another 100 prisoners. This is what Charles Bronson is going to have to do to try and get released. So even if he doesn't come off the book this year, he'll have another parole hearing. He's just had that one a couple of months back. He gets another parole hearing. Sometimes it's every 12 months, 12 to 18 months. But because he's been in that long, I believe it'll be every 12 months when he's eligible for parole. But again, if he's still category A when he comes up for his parole, again, the same scenario is going to happen. So he's going to have to show that he's changed and stick with the prison regime and rules and try and get off the book. And that is his only chance of ever getting released. So hopefully Charlie will keep to the rules, keep to the regime, and try and get out into society and live the last days of his life out. Because is he 70-year-old now? And you know what? People, when they get into the 70s, they all get different types of health problems. A lot of people don't live to see 80. So if he wants to see any sense of freedom, he's going to have to stick with the rules and the regime. Otherwise, he's going to die in prison. But who knows? There's only Charlie knows inside his head what he really wants. He might not want to be released. He might be saying to his friends on the phone back at home that he can't wait to get out, get released, and be a valued member of society. But there's only him deep down knows what he wants. He might be feeling frightened inside. He might have spent that much time in prison. He's frightened of the outside world. He's institutionalized and he's happy and he feels comfortable where he's at. And that might be what he wants ultimately. But anyone who's watching his story along the way, his friends, his family, they'll all be wanting him out and they'll all be hoping for him to do well and try and progress through the system. But it's all down to him and his ability. But I've just done another video about who is the biggest gang in the prison estate. And I mentioned Charlie on that video because the biggest gang in the high security, but the biggest gang in the prison estate is the prison service. And this is the reasons why Charles will be having a lot of trouble as well, because all the things that he's done in the past over the years, I mean, we're talking decades of violence against staff, governors, teachers, and it's all coming back to haunt him now. Even though he might have changed now and he wants to get out and live in society, all these things are what were holding him back because of all the trouble he's caused over the years. They don't know whether they could trust him. And because he's so high profile, he's going to have a lot of challenges ahead to see whether he could be released. And the person who gives him the rubber stamp and says released is going to be the person that'll get all the backlash if anything goes wrong. But Charles Bronson's still in Woodhill on the unit. Hopefully it will progress. But anything I hear of any friends or family, I will keep you all updated because I know everyone looks to this channel to see what's going on inside the prison service. And I will keep you all up to date with anything that I hear, especially from my friend Kevin Lane, because Kevin speaks with Charlie, they're good friends, and Kev knows a hell of a lot more than what I do. I maybe get him back on and do another live with him soon. But I'll leave that one there for now, people. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.